Admiral Frank Carter stood at the viewport of the USS Horizon, watching the stars streak by as the ship traveled through hyperspace. He was a tall man with gray hair at his temples and eyes that had seen more battles than he cared to remember. His uniform was crisp and perfectly fitted, the gold insignia of Earth's defense fleet gleaming under the bridge lights. "How much longer until we reach the jump point?" he asked, not turning from the view. Lieutenant Olivia Miller checked her console. She was young for her position, but her skills with navigation were unmatched in the fleet. 20 minutes, Admiral. All systems are functioning at optimal levels." Carter nodded. This mission was too important for anything less than perfection. Humanity had spent decades developing faster-than-light travel, and now they were finally ready to meet the rest of the galaxy. Or at least that's what the automated probe had told them when it arrived in Earth's orbit 6 months ago. The probe had brought an invitation from something called the Galactic Confederation, a coalition of alien species that governed most of the known galaxy. They wanted to meet humans. They wanted to welcome Earth into their alliance. Carter wasn't sure if he believed it. "Status of the fleet?" he asked, finally turning away from the viewport. Commander Peter Doyle looked up from his tactical display. "All ships in formation and ready, sir. The Defiant, Endeavor, Courage, Liberty, Triumph, and Dauntless are maintaining position around us. 7 ships. That was all Earth could spare for this historic mission. 7 ships that represented the very best of human technology and ingenuity." "Sir," Lieutenant Greg Nash said from the communications station, "I'm receiving a message from the Defiant. Captain Linda Ellis wants to speak with you." Carter nodded. "Put her through." The main screen flickered to life, showing the face of Captain Ellis. She was one of the few people Carter trusted completely, a veteran of the Mars conflict who had proven her worth many times over. "Admiral," she said, her expression serious, "my science officer has been analyzing the data from the probe again. There's something odd about the invitation." Carter felt a flicker of concern. "Explain." "The language patterns used in the message suggest multiple authors, possibly from different species, but there's an undertone that our linguistic AI flagged as, well, sir, as condescending." Carter wasn't surprised. Humanity was new to the galactic stage. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 15 years ago, while the probe indicated that some Confederation species had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. "Keep analyzing," he ordered. "I want to know everything we can before we make contact." Ellis nodded. "Yes, sir. Defiant out." The screen went dark, and Carter turned to his first officer. "Commander Doyle, assemble the senior staff in the briefing room. I want one final review of our diplomatic protocols before we arrive." "Yes, sir," Doyle replied, already sending the alert to the necessary personnel. 10 minutes later, Carter sat at the head of the conference table in the Horizon's briefing room. Around him were the key officers who would help shape humanity's first official contact with alien species. The Confederation consists of 12 major species and 27 minor ones, Commander Doyle explained, projecting images from the probe's database. They claim to operate on principles of mutual cooperation and shared advancement. "Claims can be misleading," said Dr. Karen Johnson, the fleet's chief xenobiologist. She was a woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. "We have no way to verify their intentions until we meet them." "Which is exactly why we're proceeding with caution," Carter said. "The probe provided coordinates for a diplomatic station at the edge of Confederation space. We'll arrive, make contact, and assess the situation before making any commitments." Lieutenant Miller cleared her throat. "Sir, I've been studying the star charts they provided. The diplomatic station is positioned in a way that would make rapid retreat difficult if things go wrong." Carter nodded. He had noticed that too. "That's why we've prepared contingency plans for every scenario we can imagine." "Lieutenant Nash, what about communications?" Nash sat up straighter. "We've integrated the translation matrix from the probe into our systems. We should be able to understand them, and they should understand us." "And if the translation fails?" Carter asked. "Then we fall back to mathematical communication and basic symbol recognition," Nash replied. "We've prepared extensively for that possibility." Carter looked around the table at his officers. These were the best minds Earth had to offer, people who had trained their entire lives for moments like this. They represented humanity's boundless curiosity, adaptability, and determination. 5 minutes to jump point, Miller's voice came over the comm system. Carter stood. Return to your stations. Remember, we're not just representing Earth's defense fleet. We're representing all of humanity. Every person who's ever looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. Let's make sure we give a good first impression. As the officers filed out, Carter felt the weight of responsibility settle more firmly on his shoulders. 7 billion lives were counting on him to make the right decisions. Back on the bridge, Carter resumed his position near the viewport. The stars continued to streak by, each one a sun that might have planets with their own unique forms of life. Jump. Point in 30 seconds, Miller announced. Carter took a deep breath. All ships prepare for final jump. Shields at maximum. Weapons powered down but on standby. 20 seconds. Commander Doyle moved to stand beside him. Do you think they'll be impressed by us, sir? Carter gave a small smile. Doubtful. We're newcomers with primitive technology by their standards, but that's okay. Sometimes being underestimated is an advantage. 10 seconds. All hands brace for jump, Carter said, his voice calm despite the historic moment approaching. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Jump initiated. The horizon and its 6 companion ships surged forward, the fabric of space-time bending around them as they made the final leap toward the coordinates provided by the probe. For a brief moment, everything seemed to stretch and compress simultaneously. Then reality snapped back into place and the fleet emerged into a new star system. Jump complete, Miller reported. All ships accounted for. Carter looked at the main view screen, which now showed a massive structure floating against the backdrop of an orange-red gas giant. The diplomatic station was enormous, easily 10 times the size of Earth's largest orbital habitat. And surrounding it were hundreds of ships of various designs, some so large they made the horizon look like a toy in comparison. Admiral, Nash said, his voice tight with tension. We're being hailed. Carter straightened his uniform. Put it through. The screen changed to show a being with purple-gray skin and large, multifaceted eyes. When it spoke, the translation matrix converted its clicks and whistles into English. Earth vessels, this is Diplomatic Station Epsilon. We have been expecting you. Please proceed to Docking Bay 17 following the transmitted approach vector. Carter nodded formally. This is Admiral Frank Carter of the United Earth Defense Fleet. We are honored by your invitation and look forward to peaceful discussions. Alien's eyes shifted in what might have been amusement. Indeed, the Confederation welcomes your fleet. Please prepare your diplomatic team for formal introduction to the Council. As the transmission ended, Carter caught the slight emphasis on the word fleet, as if the alien found the very concept of 7 ships being called a fleet amusing. They're not impressed, Doyle said quietly. Carter's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. No, they're not. And that, Commander, might just work in our favor. The diplomatic station was even more impressive from the inside. Admiral Carter and his team walked through massive hallways with ceilings that stretched at least 30 feet high. The walls shimmered with materials unknown to human science, and beings of all shapes and sizes moved about with purpose. Carter led a small delegation from his fleet. Commander Doyle walked on his right, carefully observing everything around them. Lieutenant Miller was on his left, her hand never straying, far from the translator device at her belt. Behind them came Dr. Johnson, Lieutenant Nash, and 2 security officers, Sergeant Paul Wilson and Corporal Maria Diaz. Their escort was a tall, thin alien with blue skin and 4 arms. It had introduced itself as Liaison Zex of the Medusan Collective. Council chamber is just ahead, Zex said, its voice slightly mechanical through the translation device. All 12 primary species of the Confederation will be present, along with representatives from several minor members. Carter nodded, keeping his face neutral despite the growing knot in his stomach. This wasn't his first diplomatic mission, but it was certainly the most important one he'd ever undertaken. The hallway opened into a vast circular chamber. Tiers of seating rose up around them, filled with aliens of every description. Some looked almost human, while others defied easy categorization. In the center was a raised platform with 12 ornate chairs, arranged in a semicircle. The delegation, from Earth, announced a booming voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. All conversation in the chamber stopped, as hundreds of eyes turned to look at the humans. Carter could feel the weight of their gaze, analyzing, judging, dismissing. Zex guided them to a small standing area facing the raised platform. "Wait here. The High Council will address you shortly." One by one, 12 beings entered the chamber and took their places on the platform. Each was distinct from the others, representing different evolutionary paths from different worlds. A large reptilian alien with iridescent scales and sharp teeth took the central position. When it spoke, its voice rumbled like distant thunder. "I am High Commander Zalvorax of the Draconid Empire and current chair of the Confederation Council. Earth has been on our observational list for some time. Your development of faster-than-light travel has qualified you for contact and potential membership." Carter stepped forward and bowed slightly. "High Commander Council members, I am Admiral Frank Carter of the United Earth Defense Fleet. On behalf of all humans, I thank you for this invitation and the opportunity to join the galactic community." A being that appeared to be made of crystalline structures chimed in, its voice like tinkling glass. "We have observed your approach to our station. The vessels you brought, is this truly your most advanced technology?" There was a ripple of what could only be described as chuckles throughout the chamber. Carter kept his expression carefully neutral. "The 7 ships of our expedition represent our current deep space capability, yes. Earth is still relatively new to interstellar travel." A third council member, a floating blob of greenish gas contained within a transparent shell, moved forward slightly. "7 ships?" it asked, the translation coming through with a tone of disbelief. "And you refer to this as a fleet?" More. Laughter echoed through the chamber, less restrained now. Commander Doyle tensed beside Carter, but the Admiral placed a subtle hand on his arm. Now was not the time for displays of pride or anger. "It is small by your standards, certainly," Carter acknowledged with a slight smile, "but it serves our current needs." "How charming," said a female-sounding alien with feathers instead of hair, like watching children play with toy boats in a pond. Carter felt Dr. Johnson shift behind him, clearly uncomfortable with the condescension. He maintained his diplomatic composure. High Commander Vorax raised a clawed hand for silence. "Regardless of their limited capabilities, Earth has been extended an invitation to the Confederation. They will be granted observer status for 3 of your Earth months. After that time, the Council will vote on whether to offer full membership." Carter bowed again. "We appreciate the opportunity, High Commander. You and your fleet may remain docked at the station during this period. Your crew will be granted restricted access to common areas. We have prepared suitable quarters for your delegation in the diplomatic wing." "You are most generous," Carter replied, ignoring the continued emphasis on the word fleet. After the formal introduction concluded, the human delegation was escorted to their assigned quarters. The rooms were spacious, but clearly designed with different proportions in mind. The furniture was too large, the ceilings unnecessarily high. Once they were alone and security scans confirmed no listening devices, Carter gathered his team. "Well, that went about as expected," he said, allowing himself a small frown. Lieutenant Miller shook her head. "They treated us like children, sir." "Did you hear the way they laughed when they talked about our ships?" "I heard," Carter said calmly. "And I saw, more importantly, I saw what they didn't bother to hide because they think we're too primitive to notice." The others looked at him with interest. "Such as?" prompted Commander Doyle. "Their security is designed to intimidate, not to be effective. Their technology is impressive, but they've grown complacent, and there are tensions between the council members that they barely bother to conceal." Dr. Johnson nodded. "I noticed that too. The representative from the crystalline species, I believe they called themselves the Tholians, seemed particularly hostile toward the Draconids. "Good," Carter said. "Keep observing. Keep learning. Every piece of information is valuable." He moved to the window that overlooked the docking bay where their 7 ships looked tiny compared to the massive vessels around them. "Tomorrow we begin our orientation. They'll show us what they want us to see, tell us what they want us to know. Our job is to see and know everything else." He turned back to his team. "They're underestimating us. Let's not give them any reason to stop." Lieutenant Nash raised a concern. "Sir, what if they're right to underestimate us? Their technology is centuries beyond ours." Carter smiled. "Technology isn't everything, Lieutenant. Humanity has faced long odds before. We survived ice, ages, plagues, world wars, and our own self-destructive tendencies. We survived first contact with each other when our cultures met across oceans. We'll survive this too." He looked each of them in the eye. "While they're laughing at the size of our fleet, we'll be learning their weaknesses, studying their technology, and finding our place in this new frontier. And when the time comes to prove ourselves, and it will come, they'll discover that humans are more than they appear to be." Outside their window, the massive alien ships continued to dwarf the human vessels. But Carter wasn't concerned. Size wasn't everything. Neither was age or technology. In his experience, adaptability, creativity, and determination counted for far more. And in those qualities, humans had never been lacking. "Get some rest," he told his team. "Tomorrow, we start showing the Confederation exactly what humans are made of." 3 days passed on the diplomatic station. The human delegation attended orientation sessions, toured permitted areas, and carefully observed everything around them. Each night, they gathered to share what they had learned. Admiral Carter sat at the head of the table in their private meeting room, listening as Lieutenant Miller reported her findings. Their navigation systems are impressive but standardized across all species. They haven't updated the basic technology in over 100 years. Why innovate when something works well enough? Nash nodded in agreement. Same with their communications. Our systems are newer and more flexible. We might be able to listen in on their secure channels with some minor adjustments. "Make those adjustments," Carter ordered. "But be discreet." Dr. Johnson tapped her tablet. "I've been analyzing their medical facilities. Their biological diversity has led to some fascinating approaches to medicine, but they're extremely specialized. Each species has their own medical protocols with little crossover." Commander Doyle was about to speak when a loud alarm suddenly blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors outside. "What's happening?" Carter demanded, rising to his feet. The door to their quarters slid open and Liaison Zex rushed in, all 4 arms moving in what appeared to be agitation. "You must come to the council chamber immediately," the alien said, its translator struggling to keep up with its rapid speech. "The station is under attack." Carter exchanged quick glances with his team. Under attack by whom? No time to explain. "The High Commander has requested all diplomatic delegations report to the central chamber." They followed Zex through corridors now filled with aliens moving quickly in all directions. The atmosphere had changed from one of calm superiority to barely controlled panic. The council chamber was crowded when they arrived. The 12 council members were engaged in heated discussion on the central platform. Holographic displays showed space around the station, where numerous ships with unfamiliar designs were approaching. High Commander Vorax noticed the humans and gestured them forward. "Admiral Carter, an unexpected situation has arisen." "So I see," Carter replied calmly. "Who are they?" A different council member, the one with feathers instead of hair, answered. "They call themselves the Harvesters. They are not part of the Confederation. They are predators. They consume resources," added another council member, a being that appeared to be made of living metal, "including organic resources, including sentient life." Carter studied the holographic display. He counted over 50 enemy ships, all biological in appearance with hulls that seemed to pulse like living tissue. "Where is the Confederation Defense Fleet?" he asked. The council members exchanged uncomfortable looks. "Deployed to the Cygnus sector," Vorax admitted reluctantly. "There is an ongoing territorial dispute that required our military presence." "Convenient timing for an attack," observed Commander Doyle. Vorax's scales rippled in what might have been irritation. The harvesters are opportunistic. They must have been monitoring our fleet movements. How long until reinforcements arrive? Carter asked. The nearest combat-ready ships are 3 days away at maximum speed, replied the crystalline being. The station shuddered as the first barrage hit its shields. Shield capacity at 92%, announced a station officer. Estimated time to failure at current rate of attack, 6 hours. Carter turned to Nash. Contact the horizon. I want status reports from all our ships. Nash stepped away to use his communicator while Carter returned his attention to the council. What defensive capabilities does this station have? Limited. Point defense systems, Vorax said. This is a diplomatic outpost, not a military installation. Another impact rocked the station. They're targeting our communication arrays, reported a station officer. Long-range communications are down. We cannot call for help. Carter saw fear in the eyes of the council members. These were not warriors. They were politicians, diplomats, and administrators who relied on their massive fleets for protection. Fleets that were currently nowhere near. Nash returned with a grim expression. Sir, the horizon reports that the harvesters have deployed some kind of energy field around the station. Our ships can leave the docking bay, but the field will prevent FTL jumps. We're trapped here, same as everyone else. Carter processed this information quickly. What about conventional engines? Fully functional. We can maneuver in normal space. The Admiral turned back to the council. How many civilians are on this station? Vorax seemed surprised by the question. Approximately 12,000 plus diplomatic staff. Evacuation protocols? There are emergency transport vessels, said the gaseous council member, but they would be easy targets for the harvesters if they tried to flee now. Carter nodded, his mind working through possibilities. What do you know about harvester tactics and weaknesses? The council members looked at each other uncertainly. They attack in swarm formations, offered one. They prefer to disable communications first, then propulsion systems, then life support. Any vulnerabilities? Sensitive areas on their ships? Vorax hesitated. They are biological constructs. Their neural clusters are located in what you might call the dorsal section. Carter turned to his team. Miller, Doyle, Nash. With me. He led them to a quiet corner of the chamber and lowered his voice. Options? Miller spoke first. 7 ships against 50 is suicide in a direct confrontation. Agreed, Carter said. So we don't confront them directly. Doyle studied the holographic display of the harvester ships. Their biological nature might be exploitable. If Dr. Johnson could analyze their composition, good. Have her start immediately using the station's sensor data. Carter turned to Nash. What about our EMP weapons? Nash's eyes widened. Against biological ships? It might work, sir. If their systems are partly organic and partly mechanical, a properly calibrated electromagnetic pulse could disrupt their neural functions temporarily. How temporarily? Minutes at most. But if we coordinated... Carter nodded. That's our opening. He looked at each of them in turn. I need you back. On our ships. Miller, you'll coordinate from the horizon. Doyle, I want you on the Defiant with Captain Ellis. What's the plan, sir? Miller asked. Carter's expression was determined. We're going to buy this station time. We can't defeat the harvesters, but we can distract them, confuse them, and hopefully give these people a chance to evacuate the civilians. The Confederation may not appreciate our interference, Doyle warned. They'll appreciate it a lot more than being harvested, Carter replied, grimly. Besides, they've made it clear they don't think much of our capabilities. Let's use that to our advantage. The harvesters will underestimate us too. He returned to the council, his team following. High Commander, Carter said formally, with your permission, the Earth fleet will engage the harvesters to provide time for civilian evacuation. There was a moment of stunned silence followed by what sounded like laughter from several council members. Your 7 ships? Asked the feathered council member incredulously. Against a harvester swarm? Vorax's reptilian features were difficult to read. But Carter thought he detected a mix of desperation and resignation. "We have no alternatives at present," the High Commander said. "If Earth wishes to assist, we accept with gratitude." Carter bowed slightly. "We'll need all sensor data on the harvesters transmitted to our ships, and coordination with your evacuation vessels." "Granted," Vorax said. "Though I fear your sacrifice, while noble, will be brief." Carter allowed himself a small smile. "Perhaps. But humans have a long history of surviving against the odds. It's what we do best." As he and his team left the chamber to return to their ships, Carter heard the feathered council member remark to another, "At least the harvesters will be distracted for a few minutes while they destroy the human toys." Carter didn't bother to respond. They would find out soon enough what humans were capable of when backed into a corner. Sometimes the smallest fleet could make the biggest difference. Admiral Carter raced through the docking bay with his team, past aliens hurrying to evacuation ships. The contrast was stark. Most species were fleeing while the humans were running toward danger. "I'll coordinate from the horizon," Carter told his officers as they reached their ships. "Miller, you're with me. Doyle, you're on the Defiant with Ellis. Nash, take the Endeavor." They split up, each heading to their assigned vessel. Inside the horizon, crew members were already at battle stations. Captain William Rogers, who had been in command during Carter's absence, quickly briefed the admiral. "We've been monitoring the situation, sir. 53 harvester ships, all with biological components. Dr. Johnson has been analyzing their energy signatures." Dr. Johnson looked up from her console. "Their ships appear to be partly organic, partly mechanical. The neural clusters High Commander Vorax mentioned show distinct energy patterns. They're vulnerable to electrical disruption." Carter nodded. "Can we modify our EMP weapons to target those patterns specifically?" "Already working on it," she replied. "Chief Engineer Abby Clark has reprogrammed the targeting systems. We'll need to get close, though. Really close." "How close?" "Within 500 meters. Carter's eyebrows rose. Space combat typically happened at distances of thousands of kilometers. 500 meters was practically touching in space terms. "That's suicide," Lieutenant Miller said, taking her position at navigation. "Only if they hit us," Carter replied. "And they won't hit what they can't track." He opened a channel to all 7 Earth ships. "This is Admiral Carter. You've all been briefed on the situation. We're facing an enemy that outnumbers us, outguns us, and thinks we're no threat at all. That's our advantage." He paused to let that sink in. "The harvesters are expecting a conventional battle. We're not going to give them one. Chief Engineer Clark has modified our EMP weapons to target their neural clusters, but we need to get close, really close." There was a brief silence as the ship captains absorbed this information. "How do we get that close without being destroyed?" asked Captain Ellis from the Defiant. Carter smiled. "By doing what humans have always done when faced with superior forces. We improvise." He outlined his plan quickly. It was risky, unconventional, and exactly the kind of approach no one would expect. "Any questions?" he asked when he finished. There were none. Every captain and crew member understood what was needed. "Then let's move. Launch sequence in 2 minutes. Good hunting." The 7 human ships detached from the docking bay in perfect formation. On the main screen, Carter could see the harvester fleet surrounding the station, their organic hulls pulsing with an eerie red glow as they continued their assault. "Station shields at 64%, reported an officer. "Harvester ships are concentrating fire on the north quadrant." "Perfect," Carter said. "That's where we're not going. Miller, take us out through the south docking ports. Full burn once we're clear." "Aye, sir." The horizon led the small human fleet away from the station, in the opposite direction from where the harvesters were concentrating their attack. "They've noticed us," Dr. Johnson said, watching the tactical display. 5 ships breaking off to intercept." "Just 5? Carter smiled. "They really don't think much of us." He opened the fleet channel again. "Phase 1 begins now. Dauntless. And Liberty, you're up." The 2 smallest human ships suddenly accelerated to maximum speed, heading directly toward the approaching harvester vessels. At the last possible moment, they split apart, each choosing a different enemy target to fly past at dangerously close range. The harvester ships tried to track them, but the human vessels were moving too erratically, changing course in ways that seemed random and unpredictable. "What are they doing?" Lieutenant Miller asked, watching the maneuvers with wide eyes. "Creating confusion," Carter replied, "and gathering data. Every pass gives Dr. Johnson more information about their ships." On the tactical display, the Dauntless and Liberty continued, their dangerous dance weaving between harvester vessels without firing a single shot. 3 more enemy ships joined the pursuit, seemingly annoyed by the buzzing human craft. "They think we're running," Commander Doyle observed over the comm from the Defiant. "They don't realize we're luring them away from the station." 8 down, 45 to go, Carter said. "Phase 2, Triumph and Courage, you're up." 2 more. Human ships accelerated from the formation, heading toward a different cluster of harvester vessels. Like their predecessors, they flew in unpredictable patterns, never staying still long enough to make a good target. "Sir, the first 2 harvester ships are breaking off pursuit of Dauntless and Liberty," reported an officer. "They're returning to the station." "Right on schedule," Carter said. "Ellis Nash, you know what to do." The Defiant and Endeavor surged forward, intercepting the returning harvesters. This time, the human ships didn't just fly past, they executed a complex maneuver that used the gravity of the harvester ships themselves to slingshot around, dramatically increasing their speed. "That's not possible," gasped a Confederation observer who had remained on the bridge. "Their structural integrity should fail at those G-forces." "Human ships are stronger than they look," Carter replied calmly, "and human pilots are very, very good." On the main screen, they could see the Defiant complete its slingshot around a massive harvester vessel, coming out of the turn at twice its previous speed. The maneuver placed it perfectly behind the enemy ship, in the blind spot of its weapons. "Defiant, in position," Ellis reported. "EMP ready. Execute," Carter ordered. A pulse of blue energy erupted from the Defiant, engulfing the harvester ship. The effect was immediate. The red glow on its hull flickered and died, and the ship began to drift aimlessly. "It worked," Dr. Johnson exclaimed. "Direct hit on the neural cluster." "Endeavor confirm," Carter said. "Confirmed," Nash replied. "Target neutralized. Moving to secondary target." Across the battlefield, the human ships continued their unconventional tactics. They never engaged directly, never fired conventional weapons. Instead, they used the enemy's size against them, executing maneuvers that the larger harvester ships couldn't match. One by one, they slipped behind enemy vessels and delivered precisely calibrated EMP bursts that temporarily paralyzed the biological components of the harvester ships. "Station reports 10 evacuation vessels away safely," Miller announced. "Harvester fleet is in disarray. They're trying to regroup." Carter nodded in satisfaction. "Time for Phase 3. All ships, convergence pattern Delta." The 7 human vessels, which had been scattered across the battlefield, suddenly changed course in perfect coordination. They flew toward the largest concentration of harvester ships, forming a 3-dimensional spiral pattern that was impossible to predict or counter. "They're trying to target us with some kind of energy web," Miller reported. "Adjusting course, to compensate." On the diplomatic station, the Confederation Council watched in stunned silence as the tiny human fleet danced through the harvester armada, disabling ship after ship without taking a single hit. "How is this possible?" asked the feathered council member. "They're just 7 ships." High Commander Vorax didn't answer. His reptilian eyes were fixed on the tactical display, watching the humans rewrite everything he thought he knew about space combat. "It's not the size of the fleet," he finally said quietly. "It's how you use it." On the horizon, Admiral Carter allowed himself a small smile as he gave his next order. "All ships, prepare for final approach. Let's show the Confederation what humans can really do." 1 week after what was now being called the Battle of Diplomatic Station Epsilon, Admiral Carter stood alone at a viewport in the horizon. He watched as repair vessels worked to fix the damage to the station's outer hull. Most of the harvester ships had been driven off or disabled, Those that couldn't flee had been captured for study by Confederation scientists. There was a soft chime at his door. "Enter," he called. Lieutenant Miller stepped inside. "Sir, the Confederation Council has requested your presence. The formal ceremony begins in 30 minutes. Carter nodded. "Thank you, Lieutenant. Is the team ready?" "Yes, sir. Everyone's in." "Dress uniform as ordered. Good." He turned from the viewport. "What's the mood on the station?" Miller smiled slightly. "Different, sir. Very different." Carter understood what she meant. The condescension and mockery that had greeted their arrival was gone, replaced by a curious mix of respect, confusion, and in some cases fear. "Let's not keep them waiting," he said, straightening his uniform. They walked through the corridors of the station, which were still being repaired in some sections. Aliens of various species stopped and moved aside as they passed. Some nodded respectfully. Others stared with wide eyes. The council chamber had been restored to its former grandeur. As Carter entered with his team, Miller, Doyle, Nash, Dr. Johnson, and the 7 ship captains, the room fell silent. Every seat was filled. Representatives from all Confederation species had gathered for this moment. High Commander Vorax rose from his central chair as the humans approached the platform. "Admiral Carter of Earth," he announced, his voice carrying throughout the chamber. "The Confederation welcomes you and your officers." There was no mockery in his tone now, no emphasis on words to indicate disbelief or amusement. Just simple, genuine respect. "Thank you, High Commander," Carter replied with a small bow. "1 week ago," Vorax continued, addressing the entire chamber, "this station was under attack by a harvester swarm. Our defense fleet was deployed elsewhere. Civilian evacuation seemed impossible. The situation was desperate." He paused, his reptilian eyes fixed on Carter. It was at this moment that Admiral Carter offered the assistance of his fleet. 7 ships against 53 harvester vessels. A murmur ran through the audience as they recalled their reactions to that offer. Many of us doubted, Vorax admitted. This council included. The human fleet was small. Their technology appeared primitive by our standards. We expected their gesture to be brave but futile. He spread his clawed hands. We were wrong. The chamber was completely silent now. Using tactics we had never witnessed, maneuvers many of us believed impossible, and a deep understanding of their enemies' weaknesses, the human fleet not only survived, they prevailed. They disabled 28 harvester ships, drove off 20 more, and provided enough time for all civilian vessels to evacuate safely. Carter stood tall, his officers beside him showing appropriate dignity. This was a moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy for generations to come. In recognition of their service to the Confederation, Vorax declared, this council has voted unanimously to offer Earth immediate full membership, bypassing the traditional observation period. He gestured, and another council member approached with an ornate box. And in personal recognition of Admiral Frank Carter's leadership, Vorax continued, opening the box to reveal a medallion of shifting colors. I present the Star of Confederation, our highest honor for those who preserve life. Carter bowed his head as Vorax placed the medallion around his neck. The weight of it was surprising, as was the warmth it seemed to radiate. The Confederation honors Earth, Vorax declared, and welcomes humanity as equals among the stars. The chamber erupted in applause and other sounds of approval from species whose anatomy didn't allow for hand clapping. The sound was deafening, a complete reversal from the mocking laughter of a week before. When the noise subsided, Carter stepped forward. High Commander, esteemed Council, representatives of the Confederation, on behalf of Earth and all humanity, I thank you for this honor. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes and eye stalks and sensory appendages of dozens of different species. A week ago, many of you looked at our 7 ships and saw weakness. You saw limitation. You saw a species too young and too small to matter in galactic affairs. He paused, allowing his words to sink in. I understand that reaction. By the measure of ship numbers and technological age, humanity is indeed young. Our fleet is indeed small. But humanity has never measured its worth by the size of its forces or the age of its civilization. He touched the medallion at his neck. Throughout our history, humans have faced challenges that seemed insurmountable. Predators that were stronger and faster, diseases that devastated our populations. Even our own world has tried to destroy us with ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and natural disasters. Each time we survived not because we were the biggest or the strongest, but because we were the most adaptable. The chamber was utterly silent, every being focused on his words. When faced with superior forces, we innovate. When conventional tactics fail, we create new ones. When resources are limited, we find ways to do more with less. This is the true strength of humanity, and it is what we offer to the Confederation. He gestured to his officers. The 7 ships you laughed at weren't a limitation. They were exactly what we needed. Small enough to be underestimated, agile enough to execute maneuvers your larger vessels couldn't match, flexible enough to be reprogrammed for a threat we had never encountered before. Carter smiled slightly. In short, they were perfectly human solutions to a complex problem. He bowed once more to the Council. Earth accepts membership in the Confederation with gratitude and humility. We have much to learn from your ancient civilizations and advanced technologies. But perhaps, in return, we have something to teach, as well. As Carter and his team left the chamber amid continued applause, Commander Doyle leaned close. Quite a change from our first visit, he remarked quietly. Carter nodded. Nothing changes minds quite like saving lives. Do you think they'll remember this lesson? Miller asked, about not judging a fleet by its size. Carter considered for a moment. Some will. Others will need reminding from time to time. And if they forget? Nash inquired. Admiral Carter's eyes twinkled with the same determination that had carried humanity from stone tools to the stars. Then we'll just have to surprise them again, he said. It's what humans do best. As they walked back to their ships, aliens of all species moved aside respectfully. No one was laughing now. No one was mocking the small human fleet or its primitive technology. They had learned an important lesson about humanity, one that the galaxy would not soon forget. Never judge a species by the size of its fleet, especially when that fleet is human.